Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to give folks just a minute to start logging on and joining us here today. Okay. All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Claire Fuller. I'm the Public Programs Manager here at Hillwood Estate Museum and Gardens. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so delighted that we can gather here virtually this afternoon for our virtual floral design workshop celebrating orchids. We hope that those of you in the DC area will be able to visit soon to explore our newest exhibition, Marjorie Merriweather Post's Paris. You can find more information about our upcoming programs and purchase tickets on our website at hillwoodmuseum.org. So I'm excited to announce that we are now offering both virtual and in-person floral workshops this year. Though our in-person workshops next month are sold out, you can join us for our next virtual floral design workshop on Friday, April 12th, which will be focused on spring blooms. So you can take a look at our upcoming programs again on our website, and I will place a link to our programs page in the chat. So before we get started, here are a couple of quick notes about today's class. Our wonderful floral and event decor designer, Amy Wilbur, will build an arrangement on camera step by step and stop for questions along the way. The demo will take about 30 to 45 minutes. So via the chat feature at the bottom of your screens, you are welcome to submit any questions that you may have as they cross your mind. After the demo, I invite you all to stay for a show and tell if you would like to show off your arrangement. We'll feature everyone who's interested, and so you're welcome to turn your cameras on at the end of the program when you're ready to share. So it is now my pleasure to pass us over to Amy Wilbur.
Great, thank you, Claire, and welcome everyone. Happy March and happy almost St. Patrick's Day. I felt the theme for this workshop would be kind of fun if we incorporated some greens to celebrate St. Patrick's Day on Sunday. So today we're also celebrating Orchid Month that's happening here at Hillwood right now. So all of our cut flowers for today are orchids that we have growing in our greenhouse. They're not from the greenhouse. I think that Andrew, our orchid guy, would be a little upset about that if I went in there and started snipping all those. But they are, again, all 3 different types of orchids that we have growing in our greenhouse as well. So it's kind of fun to sort of see them in a floral arrangement and then sort of see them in the, quote unquote wild when they are in the greenhouse. So definitely have a look at that if you are going to be coming to Hillwood sometime soon. So as Claire mentioned, we're going to be doing a step-by-step. Today, we're going to be doing a one-sided arrangement so that this is going to be good to maybe go up against a wall or go, in a corner somewhere where you will only see the front side of it. And now it won't be so front-sided that it looks like one of those, cartoon characters. When you turn it to the side, it's completely flat. It's still going to be very round and voluminous, but the focus of the flowers will be towards the front. We have these really kind of fun ceramic vases that we're going to use. We wanted to do a container that was a little bit taller, so it'll accommodate our stems for the flowers. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this chicken wire that I have cut into my container. We only use chicken wire here at Hillwood because we like to be sustainable, and floral foam is essentially just styrofoam. So the chicken wire is a much better alternative. When you're done with the chicken wire, you can reuse it several times. And then at the end, when it starts to break down, you can just put it into your metal recycling. The other thing that's great about chicken wire is the fact that the stems are sitting directly in the water so that the blooms will last longer. So as you can see, I've just sort of smushied that in. I then like to use a clear floral tape, but you can use any kind of floral tape that you have. And I will just secure the chicken wire in place. So I'm just going to do a little bit of a crisscross with my floral tape. And then just for safety measures, I like to then run the tape around the top of my container so that when you're done, you have this nice little crisscross, and it's run around the edge. The other thing that I highly recommend is getting a Lazy Susan. So you can see that you can spin, and it makes for a much easier designing tool. I'm going to angle the camera down a little bit. So if you don't see the top of my head, don't be alarmed. I'm still all here, but I want to be able to really see the container, and then we're going to have to probably move this down a little bit just so that we can get the whole arrangement in the frame. So the next thing I'm going to do is the most important. I'm going to put fresh water into my container. And the way that you can really kind of prolong your arrangement for a while is if you replenish your water and have fresh water almost every other day. And again, with the chicken wire, it makes it very easy because you can just take your container and hold it over the edge of the sink, dump out the majority of the water, and then you can go in and refill with water again. We don't put anything into our water just because we don't like anything that could potentially stain in the mansion. But if you get those little packets of floral food from, your florist or the grocery store, you can definitely throw those in as well. That's typically just a solution that's going to be something to help keep the water nice and clean, and then also something to give it a little bit of food like sugar. So the greens that we have for today, we have this nice, lovely green Pittosporum. We have what I think is super fun flower that I'm using as a green, and it's dianthus. So this is actually the same family as the carnation. If you look at your dianthus, you'll see it's the same stem as the carnation. So it'll last for a while. But this one, it's green and it's kind of fuzzy. I really love it. I think it's kind of fun. So we're going to use those two things as our greens today. And then for flowers, we have these white dendrobium orchids. We have yellow oncidiums. And then we have one big boy of one green cymbidium. So the first thing that I'm going to do, we also have curly willow, which I forgot about, but that is outside and I will get that in just a second. But the first thing we're going to do is start by greening our container. I like to always keep the stems nice and clean. That way, when it goes into the water, there's nothing to sort of murky it up. Something like this is a nice size. I'm going to make sure that I snip everything at a very sharp 45-degree angle. And that way I'm getting the most surface for the water to come in. I'm going to pull off any leaves that could potentially go into the water. And because this is a one-sided arrangement, I'm going to start at the back, and then, I think this is already too tall. First, bring her down here. Oh, thank you. Through the, it's like a cooking show. Through the magic of other people in this room, I now have my curly willow, so I will show you that in just a second. But again, what I want to do with this is sort of create a frame for my arrangement. So this will give it sort of the height and width of how much is going to be filled in with flowers afterwards. I also like to green it about 70%, just because what that will do is, if you notice, the chicken wire has very large holes and openings. This is going to kind of help to fill that in, and then also give the flowers a little bit of a base. So again, I'm just going to keep greening. I like to not force anything to go in a direction it doesn't want to go. So this one, I think, is naturally kind of curving this way. So I'm going to, again, keep it and allow it to be curving in that direction. And something like this, where you see it's sort of like three, I don't necessarily want that to go in. So I'm going to snip the other two off and leave one, because I'm going to put her towards the front there. And then I'm going to use these other ones to sort of fill in. But I'm not going to do a lot of sort of heavy greening with this because again, I'm going to want some space for my dianthus. And I have my dianthus here. I'm going to pull off these leaves because I don't need those and I don't want those to go into the stem. And I'm going to use this dianthus down towards the base of my arrangement. A nice rule of thumb to think about when you are doing any kind of floral design is that your container and your arrangement, I like to think of it to be 1.5 times the height and width of your container. And we do that mostly so that it's more stable. That's a little long. That's the other thing that's great about chicken wire is it's very easy to pull your stems in and out of the container. Okay, so again, this is really kind of fun, nice and fluffy. So I'm going to go in with 3 stems of these first, and then I'm going to save my other 2 stems for a little bit later. I'm going to, again, treat this as a green more than a flower per se. So I'm going to kind of fill it in again to cover up the chicken wire, which is primarily one of the other goals of why you want to green first, is that you want to make sure that you're not having any of the mechanisms show in your arrangement. And again, because this is just going to be a one-sided arrangement, I'm going to have this one up towards the back a little bit. So this is the back of the arrangement, and then this is going to be the front. I can tell, I'm looking at this through the camera, but let me just look at it from the front myself. All right, so it's a little bit. Just going to adjust it slightly. Okay, so I'm happy with the way this is greened. And now I'm going to go in and start with my flowers. But before we do that, does anyone have any questions about what I've done so far? Are we good?
No questions.
Excellent. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with my largest bloom, which is going to be my Cymbidium orchid. I'm going to do something that I know a lot of people horrified by, and when they see me do this, they can't believe that I'm about to do this, but this is what I'm going to do. So as you can see, I have one really large bloom of the Cymbidium, but I don't want just one large bloom of Cymbidium to be in my arrangement. And what I want to do is I want to divide this into 2 parts. So I'm going to look on my Cymbidium to find sort of the longest point of where there are stems that are coming out, and I'm going to cut it. So don't worry too much. I know it's painful for some people to see, but I am now going to snip right here. And now I have 2 stems. And these 2 are going to have to get sacrificed. So I'm going to pull these off. I'll save them for later. You can float these in an arrangement or put some somewhere else. So don't feel too badly about them. They won't get left behind. But now I have 2 stems of Cymbidium orchids. And so what I want to do is I'm going to go in with my smaller clump of stems first. And I'm going to put that in towards the bottom of my arrangement like this. And then I have one here. And then I'm going to want this other stem to come up over here. I'm just going to recut the stem again, nice sharp 45-degree angle. And I'm going to put this one in here. Oops. There we go. So now I have these 2 right in here. I'm not putting anything in sort of, I'm just going to tweak this a little bit. I'm not putting anything in my arrangement straight up and down. Everything's kind of going in at a slight angle. I'm going to move this just a second. Okay, so the next thing I'm gonna do is go in with my Dendrobium orchids, and I have 5 stems of these. And I'm going to use these as sort of my anchor points of how high and how wide the arrangement is going to be. I'm going to recut these. I'm going to go in with my first one that I want to be at the highest point of my arrangement, which is going to be this back one here. And then what I want to do is sort of make this triangular pattern. So what I mean by that is I'm going to take one stem here, and then I'm going to put my next stem, so it's coming down this way. And then I have 1, 2, and then I'll put my third one over here, and it makes a slight triangle pattern. It's a little bit more difficult with this, this sort of a bloom, but you can still kind of do it, and I think it still kind of works out okay. And I'm sorry, I have to turn this to face me at the front so I can actually see what's going on with that. Okay. And again, you really want to think about having your stems come down into the container as much as possible. Again, I'm going to then have 1, 2, and I'm going to have my third one coming out from down here. I'm going to cut this again. I know this is going to be hard for some people to see, but I'm going to cut this in half here. And then I'm going to pull off these bottom ones to make the stem shorter, so I can come and bring it in to the front here. I have this little thing that's left over, so I'm going to add that in to what I just cut. So that same stem, so I've just added it in here, and it just looks like it's a little bit fuller. Okay, so then I'm going to come into the back with my other one here. And again, I'm putting these in at an angle. And then I want my last one to come right here in front. And again, because these orchids are so beautiful, you really don't need that much to make the arrangement look amazing, I think. So again, now we've got 1, 2, 3 here. And then I'm going to pull this one out because I feel like it was competing with the Cymbidium here because I want her to have her own moment. So I'm going to then put this one over here and sort of double it up with this other one here. And I'll show you what I mean by that when I turn it back around to the front. So now she's over here with her friend. So now I've got these all happening. Just gonna cinch her up. And it's a little hard to see, but you can see that this is a little bit crazy. You can see how long that is. So I'm actually going to cut that down just a little bit as well. It's you know, one of those good problems to have, that your stems are too long and glorious. So I'm actually going to cut it halfway. So I've got these 2 stems now. I'm going to put that one again back so it's coming out from the front like it was last time, but now it's just not quite as crazy looking. And I'm going to pull off these little blooms. They can go with my other Cymbidiums that I saved over there. And then this is going to come in right there. Yeah, so let me pull this back so you can see that the dimension of that looks, I think, a little bit more in control. Now, if you want it to be kind of crazy and wild, by all means, keep it nice and long, and you can do that as well. Is there a question?
No questions at this time.
No questions so far? Okay. So the next thing we're going to do, and I'm doing this by size order in case you're wondering, because these are taking up the most amount of room. And then my next orchid that I'm going to put in is going to be this Oncidium. And as you can see, it's very delicate and it tends to break kind of easily. So I want to make sure that that doesn't have any issues. So actually, all right, figuring out a new plan, doing this as we kind of go. I'm going to put in my curly willow. Thanks to Jared who went outside to get that for me. So I'm going to just cut off a couple of pieces of my curly willow. Sorry, I'm off camera for this. It's over here. It's a big scenario going on. So this is my curly willow that I have. And I love curly willow because I find it to be really interesting and it gives so much dimension and life, I feel, to an arrangement. So I'm actually going to put this in next. I've got about 5 stems of this. These are little curly willow tips. And I'm going to put these in. These are going to be sort of my fun, whimsy addition to this arrangement. And as you can see, it's going to give it a lot of dimension. And it really, I think, kind of perks the whole thing up and brings it to life. And you'll see this when I scoot back from it and get it out from the frame so you can see it both. And I'm going to take these and I'm just going to kind of put them here and there. I like these like curlier ones. This one's a little bit straight up and down. So I might add this one in towards the back. So now before I add my Oncidiums, which is going to be the last orchid, I'm going to go back in with my other 2 pieces of Dianthus. I'm going to figure out where I want this Dianthus to go in my arrangement. If there are any kind of bald spots or things that need a little bit more dimension, like I really think this would be fun to have another one coming down from the bottom. So I'm going to have these 2 kind of nestled in together. And I'm going to have it so that one is slightly on top or in front of the other one. So I really like how that looks. And then I have this other one back here, but then I think I want to have another one. You can kind of see there's like a little tiny bald spot here. So I'm going to do the same sort of idea with that one, but I'm going to put this one behind its friend. So it's going to be back here instead. Okay. So it's a little difficult to see in the video, but you can kind of see what I've done back there with it. And again, if I'm looking at the back, I see this bald spot right here that I am not loving. So I'm going to put 1 or 2 more pieces of Pittosporum in to just sort of fill that back in a bit. It's one of those things that you don't necessarily see, but once you hold something up against it, like we'll do in just a little bit, you'll notice that it will kind of fill in any of these blank areas or spaces. So I'm just trying to give it a more full look. You can kind of see a little bit of that and how I filled in the back. All right, so the next thing and the last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to use my Oncidium orchids. And again, these are very delicate and you want to give them a lot of space. So these I'm actually going to have kind of sticking out from the arrangement even more so than the rest of the blooms. So as you can see with that first one, see how it's really sticking out a lot further. But when you're looking at it, it will fill in the spaces that are kind of negative up in here, and it'll just kind of give it this like airy sort of whimsy quality to it. And I'm gonna put these in anywhere where I see a little bit of a empty space where I know they'll be able to kind of shine and have their own moment of glory. Because again, you don't want them to get like so tucked into something that you can't even really appreciate and see all of these little tiny, tiny blooms that are on here, because they are very precious and I think they're fantastic. So I have two more left. And I feel like this, again, with the curly willow, really kind of gives it like a fun, wispy, whimsical quality to it. And then I'm just going to put my last one down here. So it's coming kind of out. And again, I feel like this, it's a little bit tricky to see and understand in the video. So I'm going to put a backdrop against it. So I just nestled this last one here up in here. I'm going to put it on a little pedestal with a backdrop so that you can get a better sense of what you're looking at. Is that too tall? No, that's too tall. This is always kind of a tricky camera scenario. So I think that works. Let me just bring it up just a wee bit like that. Now I'm going to put a little backdrop behind it so that you can actually see what it looks like. That's the front there. And then that's the backdrop. Does that work? Try it this way also. Kind of tall, so I don't know if that would work. All right. What questions do you have about making an orchid arrangement?
No questions yet. We have someone who says, beautiful Amy, I wish I was building along with you this month. If there's anyone who has a question for Amy, you're welcome to drop it in the chat. You're also welcome to unmute yourself if you'd like to share your question aloud. If you'd also like, if anyone was building along at home and would like to do a little show and tell, please turn on your camera and share with us. We'd love to see it. If not, that's perfectly all right too. But does anyone have any questions that they'd like to ask Amy today? We have one question that just popped into the chat. Is symmetry important in your arrangement?
No, I prefer asymmetry typically. I will sometimes try for symmetry, but it never seems to work out well for me. I always end up with things always being a little lopsided, but I'm okay with that. I sometimes find that even if I'm doing two things that need to match each other, like we did for the February 14th event where we had two arrangements that were next to each other that flanked the backdrop, they still were asymmetrical. They didn't quite match, but it still, I think, worked out fine.
Excellent, thank you. We got a couple of other questions that just popped in. Someone says, I am an orchid novice, so apologies for this, but how long do the orchids last in an arrangement?
So these orchids will last quite a while, actually. You can have, I would say, typically you're looking at like a good 2 weeks for them. A lot of these orchids, though, can last a little bit longer. Again, if you don't put it into direct sunlight, if you're changing up the water every couple of days, I mean, you could really have these for almost 3 weeks, which is good because I think that for anyone who had tried to procure materials on their own, I know that orchids are very expensive to sort of buy, kind of the quantity that you need to make an arrangement so that, it is something that's a little bit dear. So it is nice that they will last for at least 2 weeks plus. And then the other thing is you don't have to, go all out and have an arrangement that has 3 different types of orchids. You could always just buy like one cymbidium stem and you can create an arrangement around that. Or you could just buy a couple of stems of dendrobiums and then fill in with other things with within your budget. But then, if you just want to sort of have something that's very similar to what we did today, you can always also just go with the color palette that we selected so that you could do like the yellow, the greens, and the whites, and then just sort of fill in with whatever flowers that are available to you.
Excellent, thank you. This is a bit in line with what you were just discussing, but someone asks, how much might these flowers cost if someone were to be buying these?
So I can tell you, when I was just home in Connecticut with my family, that my mom, I was trying to find some orchids for her, and they were selling the cymbidium stems for $75 per stem, which is bananas. I don't think that anyone should pay that much for them. I know that they are very dear, but that's I think that's like a whole other thing. And they were also charging $25 a stem for the dendrobium orchids. So, they are going to be very expensive. We did happen to come across, you can buy them on Amazon, of course, of all places. But, you can find that. And I think it was like 10 stems of dendrobium orchids for like $50, which seems to be a bit more reasonable. But I think if you are looking for specialty orchids or you have to order a specialty orchid, it is going to be a little bit pricey. You can always just buy the plant, cut the flower, and then keep regrowing the plant. And then you can always have a sort of endless supply of one stem per year of an orchid.
Awesome, thank you, Amy. We've got one more question here. A couple more questions, actually. Do you disassemble the arrangement every time you change the water?
No, and that's the one thing that's fantastic about the chicken wire is that you really can just like hold it up, pour it. You want to hold onto your flower base a little bit, pour it out over the sink. I would say you only need to empty it about like 75% and then fill it up with new water.
Great, thank you. Oh, we have another question that's more for me, actually. Someone asking if they can purchase flowers from Hillwood, like we did in past years. So because we are moving towards in-person and also these virtual offerings, of course, but we have our in-person workshop opportunities. That's where you're going to be able to purchase those flowers from Hillwood. For our virtual demos here with Amy, which are wonderful always. We do post a plant list on the website, so you can take a look at that plant list and source flower materials to follow along at home if you would like. But does anyone have any additional questions for Amy here?
Did anyone do an arrangement?
Yeah, if anyone did an arrangement, we'd love to see it. If anyone did, it looks like maybe they're not interested in sharing, which is totally fine also.
And again, I know this is like one of the harder, these are some of the harder blooms to sort of procure out there in the general public. So I do get that as well.
Great, it looks like it looks like that's all the questions that we have for today. So thank you, Amy, for another wonderful demonstration, a beautiful arrangement here today. Thank you all for joining us. Again, I have put the links to our website in the chat, as well as the link to our next virtual program if you'd like to join that as well. And you can take a look at all of our other offerings at hillwoodmuseum.org. So thank you all again for joining us, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your Friday and enjoy your weekends.
Great. Thank you, Claire. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Amy. Bye.